A very warm welcome to all the viewers to the Dialogues from Facebook, which has now become an integral part of the Raisina Dialogue. This is the inaugural conversation, and we are having it with one of the most wonderful speakers and articulate thinkers in global affairs today, the Prime Minister of Norway, Erna Solberg. Ma'am, thank you for joining us on Dialogues from Facebook.
Happy to be here. Yes.
I'm going to ask you a few easy questions and one tough one. Let me start with the tough one. Europe has today stolen the title from South Asia as being one of the most dangerous places in the world. You see the rise of the right, you see tensions between countries, you see Russia not willing to retire, you see the Brexit, you see populism, nativism and rhetoric that was normally a virtue of emerging economies or emerging countries, developing nations. Sitting in Norway on top of that continent, how do you see the unraveling or the resetting that is happening in Europe?
I'd like to say I don't think the people of Europe feel that they are living in an unstable part of the world. I think they feel very peaceful. On a Saturday night they will still go out to a restaurant, have a nice meal, or go to dancing in a club. It's not a I mean, I've seen much worse crisis than the political turbulence that you have in some European countries. But there is a change in an area where there was very predictable what would happen, and there was this urge to work more together. And you have seen that the tension that globalization has created, because in some countries maybe the leaders have not been good enough at understanding that when you have increased globalization, you need to also change policies. Correct. To make sure there are new groups that become vulnerable. So you have to have new policies, and that's I think what was one of the challenges that has made the ground for tension again on immigration, the grounds for tension on globalization and international trade. And I think it's important to not just say that it's this large changes that is the reason why. It's also because maybe in several countries we should have been better at meeting those challenges. But of course it's more unpredictable. But the opinion polls say that there is one more stable part of this, and it's interesting to see that the European Union is now gaining in popularity in a lot of European countries, because these days the instability with Brexit and maybe inside some other countries lead people to see that maybe this cooperation is a good idea. Maybe that we are working together politically, like in the European Union, does benefit us all. It's we are having sometimes Brexit is now a full-fledged example on what happens if you don't want to participate in that more, and it doesn't really give. It's not an example it seems like many would like to follow.
So you are not necessarily seeing the internal divisions, and it's not necessarily the external actors. I'm more seeking to understand the rise of different political groups in Europe, and how is that changing the nature of the continent?
Well, it's changing because in some countries they haven't worked hard enough on what challenges migration leads to. In a lot of European countries there have been a steady stream of illegal immigrants, asylum seekers, that they have not been able to, if they have not been formalized because they've been having the right to get asylum, they've still been staying on. So you do have a challenge with people living under severe conditions in very modern societies, and it does also make a challenge because the black economy can increase. Correct. The unserious businesses increases, and people who have low income jobs feel the competition from it. That's why we should always be sure that if you have that migration should be orderly, that it should be respected, that if you don't get grant, for example, for asylum, to us it's an important issue that the country that your origin from is taking you back when you are sent back, because that is a balance that is extremely important for the future of all of these institutes, for example, for asylum seekers who need the rescue that they are seeking from. I think the tension of that and tension of globalization is something that has been the rise of why you get more extremist political parties getting more ground, but you also have positive ways the other way. Mark Rutte won an election in the Netherlands when everybody thought that there will be a very right-wing swing in the.
Correct.
It didn't come. Macron was a new
Elected,
party,
right?
but it was a center party, you know, in the central politics, trying to build bridges among. And he also won with a large
Mandate.
support.
Yes.
So I don't believe that it's only, you know, the extremes.
So this is the ebbs and flows of
yes, but
political evolution.
But I think the old parties have to modernize. I think one of the benefits in my country is that we have very strong youth movements. All of our political parties have strong youth movements. We are under constant challenge on new things from our youth. You have a very organized 16 to 24-year group that is both getting mandates, they're getting members of parliament, they are pushing our policies, and they are listening more to the new development maybe than, you know, 50-year-old, a little bit more relaxed politicians like me.
You know, that brings me to the question that I think is dear to your heart. The whole question of development goals, of bringing people to the center of policy making, catering to their aspirations and needs. There are two curious nuances to Norway's position. The one, of course, is that it is a champion in promoting this new way of existence. And the second is that it makes all its wealth through fossil fuels.
Yes.
And some of us wonder, is it the guilt that makes you commit more funds to the SDGs? Or how does it work out? What is, you know?
I'm lucky to say that not all of our income is coming from oil and gas and fossil fuel. We still have some other businesses there. We do make excellent salmon, for example. Fisheries is important for us. Our whole maritime industries are important. And, you know, one of the reasons why the energy, you know, the solar system is be better in the world is that Norway is very good on making this silicium even more better at transforming, you know, and be more efficient on energy. So there is different other aspects to our economy, but of course oil and gas has been an important part. That's also why we have a large sovereign fund, because we have saved most of the money for the coming generations. It's not guilt, it's responsibility. It's because we believe that the world's problem is also our problems. If we don't cope with climate, if we don't cope with the oceans, and to make sure that they are healthy and can be used sustainably, then our model of growth will also be disrupted. It will be more difficult, and I think that's one of the reasons why we have a high activity on international issues and on global development. And then, of course, we are. It's some fossil fuels are still important for some transition. For example, in Europe, they will need gas for several decades in the future to transform from coal to gas. And we are a delivery of gas, and we are the only one with a large amount to deliver beside Russia. So it's also about security policies in Europe. So I'm not ashamed of that. It's led to great jobs, great technologies, and it will lead to great technologies for the future. For example, is our subsea service business is now moving towards new waves, new types of wind power and floating. So technology investments are important.
So a large part of your savings today are being deployed to create renewables and new forms of technologies.
They are created to make sure that our future is secured, our pensions are secured, but they are investing on the stock exchange of the world, and they are investing wisely.
They're investing wisely. And are they investing green?
They are also investing in green, but not only green.
Not only green.
But they are also investing in green, and we are also using parts of our in our budget to work on in developing countries on solar energy and things like that.
Let me ask you a question about the political model of Norway now. Women in leadership roles. You are a government where the top 3 or 4 positions are occupied by very wise women leaders. How did this come about? How different is this leadership? And what are the lessons that Norway can share with the rest of us of the advantages and the benefits of having diversity in shaping your country's trajectory?
Well, I'm the second female Prime Minister in Norway, and I think it's been easier for me than for the first, and for those who were in the forefront in the 80s for more women into politics and into the government. And I think the change was bigger at that time, to be honest, than it is today, because Norway in a way has matured, so the people are not so, it's not such a special thing. I mean, you can, yes, it was the first time we had a foreign affairs minister that was a woman. It was not the first woman who was a finance minister, it was the second one. So we have come into a more normalized situation when it comes to women leadership and women participation. But I think it had an influence in the 80s and the 90s on transforming maybe a little bit of the political life to be more also connected to everyday life for people. The conflict between women's labor market participation and taking care of the family, for example, so that the maternal leave permissions, which is now divided between men and women, and father and mother is both getting leave at different time, and they have to take it. It's that I think came because more women in politics could focus on what was the issues. If you want more women to work, and they want to work have them to work full time, you have to sort out with the kindergartens and the systems of help. So I think in those aspects, I think it changed the political life a bit in Norway, and I think still it's. But I'm not of those people who believe that women make the world more peaceful just because of our gender. I think it's because of the political ideas we have, and if that's. You can have rotten politicians both as men and women, I think, in all over the world, and you can have great politicians of both sexes. But I think it's good for like it was good for me to see those who went in front. It's good for the youth of today to see women in all types of positions, because it becomes natural, and then it doesn't make it difficult for the next generation to continue.
Let me ask you the final question, and this is now bringing you back to India and your visit. Of course, the first element is what are the big areas where we can work together as India moves to a $5 trillion economy in the next 5 to 6 years. How can Norway and India partner in new ways? And the second, of course, is that why is it that much of the imagination of Norway in South Asia and India also is about Norway having a degree of engagement with the rebels in this region. You know, in Sri Lanka, now of course you made news while you were here about Kashmir, and I think it's a little overblown there. But Norway seems to be want to intervene or somehow pacify or somehow attempt to create solutions. Is there something unique about Norway that wants to make Norway an intermediator or an interlocutor in global conflicts and disputes?
Well, I think in Sri Lanka it started out with the fact that we had a development cooperation with Sri Lanka, and we had a lot of work in the Tamil areas, and there was a lot of Tamil students that came to Norway, and then the civil war broke out, and the difficulty started, and then we have had a large group of refugees coming to Norway from the Tamil areas, meaning that people knew people, and that's the basis. If you want to be a mediator somewhere, you must have something special to offer. And we had people in our country who had access to talk to Tamil leadership, at the same time could talk to the Sri Lankan government, and we tried out. It wasn't very successful, I have to admit. When you look at the end part of what happened in Sri Lanka, I still believe that it was a very difficult choice that the whole for very many of the Tamils, that we ended in the situation that we did. But I think also in Norway we have seen that it's possible for a small country to contribute if the partners want us to contribute in something. And there is no way you can create any peace dialogue without the partners wanting to participate in peace dialogue. But we have formalized this work a bit in our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, that means that we have some arenas that people can meet, talk and discuss, but we never engage if you're not asked to engage, and we know very well that you can never make any peace solutions anywhere without the partners being wanting to do that, wanting to to make sure that it's possible to reach to some kind of agreement to stop fighting or others. But I also think you need countries like that in the world. We maybe because we are small and doesn't have that big history in a lot of regions, it's easier to ask if we can can facilitate for something. Colombia we did for the peace agreement, I think, and we are still following up on that because it's an important example of a long-term conflict that have led to many refugees, many people who have died. Now the government and the FARC has settled, and hopefully it will continue to be a good example in the years to come, but all pieces are fragile.
And the 2 or 3 big ideas for our bilateral.
Oh yes, for our bilateral. The bilateral between us, I think it's going to be concentrating on the maritime, marine areas, the green economy and the blue economy. That's where I think we have the biggest knowledge and competence, and using all other types of cooperation into it. I know that more ICT companies are now looking at this because everything today is big data. Controlling the resources, controlling your energy use is about also how you measure and how you deal with your resources is also an ICT issue in most areas. So I think these are the areas that India and Norway will continue to cooperate even more on. And I know we have used a lot of we have a lot of companies who are moving more towards batteries to use electricity in the maritime sector. Ferries over the Norwegian fjords are now basically zero emission ferries. Those that are under construction because we are supporting that, and that means that we are creating new technology that can be used other places. So research and development is also a big area for cooperation. There's quite a lot of Indians by our standards, not by the percentage of Indians, but compared to our population, quite a lot of Indians who in fact come to Norway and take part of their studies and universities, and especially in technological and maritime areas.
At ORF, of course, we have done a lot of work with many of your institutions, certainly on climate and sustainability issues, on urban development issues, and we are delighted that we were finally able to host the Prime Minister of Norway at our institution. Thank you very much, ma'am, for inaugurating this dialogue, and it's been an honor and a privilege to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.